the list of participants this morning, you need any introduction. So we'll go ahead and get started. Chief Berger has been with the town fire department now for 20 years, and half of that time you've served as chief. Is that right, or just about half of that time?
Yep, that's just about right. I think June is my 10-year anniversary.
All right, congrats. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. Like I said, I'm going to be a little distracted, keeping an eye on the participant pool while people join us, but I wanted to just get the conversation started by asking. I have a few prepared questions for you, and I just wanted to say to everyone before we start, I see a few new names here. This is a really casual conversation and platform, so feel free. I've opened up everyone's mics. You just have to open it on your end. Feel free to chime in at any time and ask a question, make a comment. So, Chief, to get us started, can you just tell us, a little bit about the Great Barrington Fire Department? How many full-time staff members you have? How many call firefighters versus full-time firefighters you have? How do you navigate that balance of staffing, and just an overall summary of how it all works?
Yeah. So right now we're a primarily call department. Most of our members are paid on call. They're not full-time. We have 3 full-time firefighters. We have one person working from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days of the week. So they're on a rotating schedule, but only one is working at a time. And they handle a lot of the fire prevention, inspections, equipment maintenance, prepping for training, and obviously respond on calls as they come in. But our primary staffing for emergencies is still on call or volunteer firefighters. We're always looking for more. Right now, I believe we have 20 members, but that can be deceiving due to the fact that people are always at college on leave of absence for one reason or another. So we have about 14 or 15 active members right now. And obviously at any given moment, particularly during the workday, and I'd say even summer weekends are our toughest times. There's only necessarily a fraction of them available. But, thankfully, most of them are very dedicated. All of our firefighters are exceptional firefighters, whether they're full-time or call. That really has nothing to do with the skill level as a firefighter. It really just has to do with, additional responsibilities.
Great. That kind of leads me to my next question. It's the perfect segue. And that's, how does somebody become a firefighter? I'm assuming that people approach you from time to time, maybe stop in the fire department, and what does that process look like? Does it start with a tour, a phone call, a conversation, a visit on the training night?
Yes, I can start out a lot of different ways. Honestly, the best recruiting method for the fire department pretty much forever has always been word of mouth. But we definitely do have other people that just walk in. Sometimes I heard about it, moved to the area, whatever, and are interested. So for anybody that really knows very little about us, how we operate, what the job is, it definitely starts out with an overview of the department. We encourage them to observe a few Monday night trainings just to get an idea of what it's like. And hopefully, rather than discouraging them, that inspires them. And from there, there is extensive training. We provide all the equipment, all the training free of charge, and all of that kind of stuff. It starts out initially with some basic in-house training. We have a few steps through our process. So your initial training is very basic in-house stuff to just an overview of how we operate and basic support functions. Once you're signed off on that, then you do get a pager. You are allowed to respond on calls, but very limited in what you do. We call those people yellow hats. They wear a yellow helmet to easily distinguish them. The rest of the firefighters wear a black helmet, and that's what everybody's working up to trying to get, is become a black hat, as we say. And so from there, after your initial sign-offs, then it's just a process over about a year. Some people do it faster, some people do it slower, but a lot more in-house training. And we send everybody to the fire academy to get firefighter at least one certified. Typically, we've been using the Mass Fire Academy, which has an excellent program, but particularly during COVID, that was not being held very regularly. Right now, it's coming to Western Mass once a year. One of the nice things about that is that they have gone to a hybrid program now where a lot of the classroom stuff is online, so you don't actually have to travel to Springfield for a substantial part of the classroom portion. The program is about 4.5 months long, generally 2 evenings a week and 1 weekend day. We did just start using also the one of the Springfield Fire Academies, which is in Winstead. And there are a couple nice things about that. One of which is it comes around 3 times a year, and they have a specific program, which they call an accelerated program during the summer, geared towards college students, because one of the challenges that we've had over time is that typically the fire academy overlaps the school year. So it's very hard for college students to get that in. So Connecticut actually has a program geared specifically towards enabling students to go to college, pursue whatever career they're pursuing, but still be able to get their firefighter 1 certification. Once that certification is achieved, then that's generally the last checkbox that has to be checked off, and somebody completes probation and they're a full firefighter at that point. Obviously, as a firefighter, training and professional development is a continuous, ongoing process, but that completes the basic probationary training.
So, Chief, I served for a very brief time on the fire department, so I have a pretty good idea of how it works. And one of the things that really impressed me when I was on the fire department is how people of various backgrounds, ages, all could play an important role in the fire department. And I think there's kind of a stereotype that exists that people think you have to be young and strong and ready to run into a burning building, but there's a lot more to being in the fire service and on the fire department. Can you just kind of talk about how people with different skill sets can be an asset?
Yeah, that's one of the advantages to our department, and I would say call and volunteer fire departments in general is you generally get a lot of people with a lot of diverse backgrounds who have a lot of skill sets and expertise and stuff outside of necessarily the fire service, but very transferable skills. We really are the catch-all of emergency services. If somebody has a problem, they don't know how to solve it, we're the ones that get called. And there's no 912 for us to call to bail us out. We're generally the end of the line. So a lot of the time, people's expertise from their own backgrounds and stuff comes in very handy here. Yes, the bread and butter of the job is very physically demanding, extremely difficult. I find that part of the job very challenging and rewarding. I enjoy it, but certainly as firefighters get older, they start to graduate towards more driving the trucks and maybe getting promoted to instant command positions or running accountability. And so yes, just because somebody is either on light duty for some reason due to a injury or something, or just due to age, they still fill some of the most vital roles here. It takes a big team in order to get most of our jobs done. I think there was another part to your question, but I was just going to say one of my favorite firefighters here, actually Captain Palumbo, back when I joined. I always remember one Monday night when he looked around the station and he was like, "We don't look like a bunch of firefighters. We look like a bunch of misfits." And he was just referring to the very diverse backgrounds of people that we had And yes, definitely not made up of 100% your firefighter calendar people. But all of us play a vital role in protecting the community, working together as a team, and yeah, have a good time.
Yeah, you know, very much appreciated during my time on the fire department how diverse the backgrounds of members were, and getting to know people in the community that I might not normally interact with. It really gave me an opportunity to meet quite a few new people, and to this day I still communicate with some of them. So my next question for you, Chief, and you kind of touched on this earlier, is the variety of calls. I know the department, again, from my time on it, how broad your training needs to be because of the variety of calls you receive. But can you just kind of talk a little bit more about what a modern fire department gets in the way of calls, and how you train for these unique calls, water rescues, extrication, all kinds of, I know you spent quite a few hours up on Monument Mountain throughout the year. So, it's a lot more than firefighting, I guess is what I'm getting at. So.
Yes, that certainly adds to the challenge of the job, and the volume of training required, and also the very diverse equipment that we have. People think, why do you have so many fire trucks? But, most of the time, all of those trucks aren't necessarily at a fire. There's a ton of other specialized equipment on them and specialized training that goes with stuff. So right now, we run about 1,200 calls a year. Our call volume split about 50-50 between 600 fire and rescue and 600 EMS. The EMS calls are predominantly handled by myself and our few full-time firefighters. We send one EMT on all priority EMS incidents in town. Occasionally, we do need additional assistance, whether it's for lifting or doing CPR or some other more manpower intense incidents, and the rest of the fire department gets toned out. But with regards to the other incidents, we do a good number of structure fires. That goes up and down. The past year's been a little bit slow for us. I believe for the past 5 years, we've had 65 structure fires. So there actually is more of that than a lot of people think, but we respond to all other kinds of fires, outdoor fires, brush fires, and that stuff. We also, from time to time, do a bunch of motor vehicle extrications. People, crash, trapped in their vehicles. We just did one of those yesterday. And technical rescue, as you mentioned, is definitely becoming a lot more of our job when we're up on the mountain. Very frequently, sometimes those are technical rescues involving rigging rope systems, rappelling, and all that fun stuff. Other times it's just really brute force manpower carrying somebody out of there. One of the great additions to the department over the past, I'd say probably 5 years ago, the Firefighters Association raised the money for a UTV with a special sled in the back for putting a patient there. And that has saved us a ton of time and work, and made rescues a lot safer. We've been slowly working our way through and, making sure that we have access to a lot of the trails in town. Certainly some of them are completely inaccessible from a UTV, but we're slightly expanding that, which is making our job easier, safer for the patients, and also with our reduced manpower now, just the way things are, the less manpower that's required for an incident, the better that it is. We do also do water rescue. We've made a bunch of ice water rescue rescues over the years. A bunch of us have recently just gotten certified in swift water rescue. And we also do confined space. We have a bunch of people trained, but we're not equipped for um, trench rescue. And a bunch of our firefighters actually are on the Western Mass Technical Rescue Team, which is made up of, it's overseen by Western Mass Fire Chiefs, but it's made up of specially trained firefighters throughout Western Massachusetts. And we have utilized, obviously, our firefighters, our members on the team respond to incidents with them, but we've requested them multiple times for some of our more complicated technical rescues. They bring on in a whole nother level of equipment and a lot more people trained to, the technician level, which not everybody on our department is trained to with regards to technical rescue. We also do hazmat. Sometimes that gets a little interesting, but all in all, our real hazmat call volume in Great Barrington is fairly low. And then we do a bunch of other, service calls, people's sprinkler pipes or, water pipes freeze, flooding the place out. And gaining access into houses when people lock themselves out. Lots of different things, but I think that covers the bigger categories of what we respond on.
Thanks, Chief. And you mentioned a few times in your comments today, how challenging it is with a roster of, what did you say, 20, 22?
20. 20 call plus 3 full-time, so yeah.
Okay. So, based on that, I'm assuming you need to rely on mutual aid quite frequently or provide mutual aid. This wasn't a question I was planning to ask you today, but it might be interesting to the group to kind of hear from you how mutual aid works in South County or really in the county as a whole, and how you rely on it and how you provide it.
Yeah, a good example of how things have changed is that it used to be considered mutual aid for Great Barrington to call Housatonic to a call, whereas now we automatically, both stations get dispatched on every kind of incident. So that shows how not only things have changed within town, that the individual stations were pretty much able to handle most of their own incidents back in the day. And that's not possible. And yes, things have expanded beyond that. So we not only run mutual aid, we run something called automatic aid. So for any reported building fire in town, we have an engine coming in from Sheffield and a RIT team coming in from Monterey automatically. So that gets started even before we necessarily request it. And nowadays we pretty much live and die by mutual aid. So almost every working fire in town, we have mutual aid going to work at, and we provide lots of mutual aid in return. So, that does bring some challenges with it, but we've been working on joint trainings. We've hired some outside vendors to come in and put on some really good classes the past few years, where many of our mutual aid partners also participate. Just, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but unless we're all doing it the same way, working with the same game plan and stuff, operations aren't very smooth. So, yes, getting us all both trained to the same level and operating in the same ways has been one of our goals and challenges over the past few years. We've definitely worked on joint operational policies for different things. And yes, mutual aid is extremely important, both for us to provide and to receive.
Yeah, and during a major incident, I know you have a support group in place, and I'm not sure if everyone knows what the role of the support group is, who the support group is made of, how they raise money, how you could contribute to the support group if you wanted to. Maybe you could just touch on that a bit.
Yeah. So the support group raises money to provide support to us throughout the year of major incidents, primarily water, food, all of the auxiliary stuff that's needed at an incident. But we don't necessarily, we certainly can't be tackling that stuff ourselves. So my mom's actually the one in charge of the support group. And, anybody that's interested in helping out there, they're always looking for more help also, both for fundraising and for supported incidents. You just contact me and I can get you in contact with my mom. But, thankfully the past year, we've been a little slow on major incidents, but it's easy for through an incident to go through, several hundred, if not $1,000 worth of supplies, just feeding 30, 50 people. So yes, definitely supporting them is very helpful. I believe they have they're discussing a couple fundraisers coming up, but they just did the Krispy Kreme donut one a couple months ago, which has raised a bunch of money for them. So yeah, supporting them is also very helpful in supporting us.
That's great. Anyone else on the line this morning with a question or comment for Chief Berger?
Other than the obvious thank you on behalf of those of us who run away from burning buildings. This is the first I've heard of the auxiliary group, the support service group. So I guess this is to the press people in the room, spread that, because that seems like a great thing we could support.
Thank you.
I have a question, Chief. It's clear that all the fire departments in our area are having trouble attracting new members. And there's been chatter about perhaps a regional fire department. And I know when the current fire station was built, I believe that was in the back of the mind of some of the planning. Maybe you could speak a little bit about, is that current, is that being talked about, or how is that going?
Okay, so yes, that's definitely being talked about and in various ways at various levels, both with regards to EMS and fire. That's a very challenging issue going forward, but it definitely needs to be discussed. I think the first step is what we're doing right now, which is just much better regional coordination between the existing departments. I think one thing that's important for some people to think that, Great Barrington could house a regional fire department within Great Barrington and cover, all of South County. That is not reasonable at all. Response times are extraordinarily important. And even if we staffed a couple full-time companies in Great Barrington, by the time they got to the outlying communities as the primary responders, there would really be no point in even calling them. So I would say moving forward, regional coordination between the communities, which may ultimately in 10, 15 years lead to a regional fire district, which is actually legal in Massachusetts. It makes the whole share service thing is very challenging with regards to it being shared and shared oversight and all of that kind of stuff. In the fire world, there are fire districts which can cover multiple municipalities, which creates a much simpler funding and governance structure for such an organization. So ultimately, I see all rural areas of the state and honestly the country starting to move towards that model, but it's nothing that's going to happen overnight. For a bunch of reasons, but better regional coordination is certainly in the works now, and it will be an incremental process. Where it ultimately ends up, I can't tell you.
All right, well, I have another question, EMT versus EMS services, and I've always been curious as to how you guys interface and who does what to who.
Okay, so Southern Berkshire Ambulance provides the primary EMS transport service to the town. We, as a fire department, are actually licensed right now as an EMS service provider. We have an expedition which is staffed with our one EMT, and also in an extreme emergency can actually be used as a transport vehicle if absolutely, or if our first and second mutual aid is unavailable, is how the policy is. For all priority incidents, we send one EMT in town to respond on the incident. Normally, we're the first people there providing aid, and just an extra set of hands for the medics when they get there. The other thing we do that is made possible by us being a licensed agency is that when Southern Berkshire Ambulance is short-staffed, as in they have an ambulance with just one EMT on it, we are able to cross-staff their ambulance in order to provide the second EMT that's required in order to transport. And we do that fairly frequently, which is providing a much better service to the town rather than us needing to wait 20 minutes for Lee or North Canaan in order to come to town in order to transport a patient.
Yeah, and part of the reason that got me thinking about it, frankly, is funding. So it seems that the town and town officials fully understand that funding the fire department is like priority one. There never seems to be any doubt about that. And frankly, I've been quite amazed at the discussions and hand-wringing about funding the Berkshire, the ambulance squad. And I just don't get it. And obviously you guys work hand in hand depending on the situation. I don't know if you have any insights. And
Yeah, I mean, I can make a few personal comments on that. One of which is that, yes, EMS is an absolutely vital service, the same as fire, police, DPW, all those things. And I don't think that most of the pushback that I heard really had to do with whether or not people think that it's a vital service. I can tell you right now that Southern Berkshire has some fantastic medics. We have a great working relationship, it's great having them as our service provider in the community, and they do a fantastic job. EMS is primarily funded differently than fire departments and ambulances. They do get to bill for their service. Having worked intimately with them for 20 years now, and being on the board of directors for the ambulance squad now, I can tell you that the greater concern was over how they were being run. And right now, they have a new director of operations, Caleb Stone, who is doing a fantastic job up there, and has turned around what previously was some of their big challenges. So things are going much better there now. And I will not say that municipal funding will never be needed for them. I think that's quite possible. Reimbursements, particularly from Medicare and Medicaid, are less than they should be. But right now, Southern Berkshire has a business model whereby they are, we're able to provide a very good service to the community based off of EMS billing. If that changes, as was made very clear to the communities, then we will be back. And I think that another thing, due to a number of very challenging years, a bunch of capital improvements were not made up at Southern Berkshire. And one of the things that request was made for some of the ARPA funding for purchasing a new ambulance, which I believe has been very well received by all the communities. So I don't think that there's a resistance of funding EMS or I think there were really other issues that went into that.
Well, thank you. That's the first really good explanation that I've heard about what the issues are. Anyhow, thanks, and thanks for doing a great job for the community.
Thank you.
Ellen Laura, looks like you have your hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself. You're good on my end.
Hi, I had an emergency at my house last night, and I'm wondering if I should have called 911. I discovered that my washing machine had walked off of it had walked away from the wall and unplugged. It was running, and the hose got jerked off the wall, and there was about 5 inches of water in my basement when I got there. And I was able to get to the incoming house water and turn off the water to my house, which solved the problem. But I was walking through several inches of water, and I thought, am I going to get electrocuted? And I didn't really think about 911 at that point. Is that the kind of thing I should have been more cautious about?
A couple of inches of water in your basement, honestly, you're not going to get electrocuted from that walking through it. Even if there's an electrical outlet or something exposed to it. So I wouldn't worry about that. What my bigger concern would be there with regards to, if your washing machine was in your basement, it was all confined to your basement, you're probably fine. But where we definitely run into a bunch of issues is when there are pipes that burst on higher levels, and a whole bunch of light fixtures, electrical outlets and stuff like that get wet. Then that definitely is a safety hazard. And we go through and make sure that all of the circuits that were affected are shut off and isolated. And they really need to be dried out for a few days, whether it's just letting them dry out for a few days or having an electrician come in and actually go through methodically and dry everything out faster. But that is definitely moisture in any sort of electrical fixture or outlet is definitely a concern with regards to starting a fire.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a question or a comment for Chief Berger? No. All right. Well, Chief, thanks so much for joining the virtual coffee this morning. It's been really helpful to hear a little more about the fire department, and I really appreciate you joining. So,
thank you. Be happy to come back on another time if you need me. So
sounds good. Thanks,
okay.
Chief.
Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.
So I just have a few updates to share with the group, and if you were tuned into the select board meeting recently, you probably heard these, so I apologize for the repeat, but I did want to mention to anyone that may have missed it that our Division Street Bridge bid opening did happen last Thursday, something we've been really looking forward to, and obviously it's a challenging project due to permitting and funding and design work that goes into replacing a bridge, but the low bidder for that project was Reifenberg, and I believe they're out of Troy, New York. And the bid price came in at $1,763,115. So we're still combing through the bids right now. I think we received about 7 or 8 total, just to make sure that everything is in place. But it looks like at this point that they'll be the contractor, and it's really exciting to get to see some movement there. We're hopeful that this project can happen soon and have that crossing reopened by summer. So that's great news. And then our annual town meeting, some of you may have heard, was delayed until June again this year due to COVID concerns at the time. We have to make that decision according to our charter and our bylaws no later than March 1st. So we had to make that decision in early February this year, and June 6th, Monday, June 6th will be the date of our annual town meeting. It has not been determined whether it will be indoors or outdoors yet. And then June 9th will be the follow-up date if we don't complete all of our business in one night. And that's all I have for this morning. Does anyone else have a question or a comment or any other topic they want to cover?
Mark, maybe you could give the group a little update on downtown Wi-Fi.
Sure. So we've been meeting, when I say we, I mean a few members of town staff have been meeting with a small working group that includes Richard and Tim, both on this call this morning, and Ed Abrams, one of our select board members, working on a free Wi-Fi network for our downtown district. So you might notice when you're walking downtown some very small antennas or access points mounted to the face of some buildings, and those are there to provide free Wi-Fi to visitors of our town. So that network is growing. It's slowly, but it is growing. I think we have 3 antennas in place at this point. Is that right, Richard?
I'll stand by. I think it was my understanding 2, one on the front of the Barrington House and one on the back of the Barrington House. And supposedly it's operational. Unfortunately, I can't access it down here in Mexico, but maybe you or some of your staff might try signing on. Adam advised me that there's a video. I have no idea what it's about. Mm-hmm. But one of the next steps, and I discussed this with Tim, is, we've been so focused on getting easements and getting people. We haven't really discussed what that opening page would look like. Things like directing people to the town hall website for certain things. And, there's just so many directions you can go on it, and you kind of need, we need to start talking about that.
Yeah, and we do have some interest from building owners and business owners downtown to participate in this. So this is a really, another exciting initiative for the town of Great Barrington, and I think you're going to see it grow quickly. Once we have a few antennas in place, I think it'll grow from there. Tim, go ahead. Your mic is open.
I was just going to say that I've actually started thinking about what that splash page should look like now, and we'll have more information shortly. Just in general, I think it would be great if there was, in addition to a linkable list of retail stores, restaurants, other services, a map and a calendar of events. And there's a couple of ways that can be done without reinventing the wheel. So more to come on this, but that's in the works.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Richard. That's a great topic to bring up. And
Can I jump on that quickly, Mark?
yeah, please do it.
Say that the Wi-Fi is working. I've tried it. The one in the front of the building. I haven't looked even to see if there's one in the back. The 20-second video is a generic Great Barrington, some news report, I think. But the downtown Great Barrington Cultural District has a website that includes a map, an interactive map, and also lists all of the businesses and cultural attractions downtown. So that could be a great place to start.
Yeah, I think that's like maybe the prime candidate to link on that page. The system is very flexible. Right now, there is that video at the beginning. It doesn't have to be there. One of the decisions we need to make is, do we want to allow advertising as part of the system or not? So that needs to be discussed and resolved. So more on that too. But there's quite a bit of flexibility of the way the network can be set up. And about the only large scale limitation I think that's important is that it's done in a way that doesn't encourage residents or businesses in the core area from using that as their primary internet connection rather than having their own. It's really, that's really not its intended purpose.
Thanks, Tim. All right, well, it's about 11:15. I just want to say thank you to everyone that joined this morning. I'll continue to send reminder emails out, get a little blast out on Facebook and Instagram just before these coffee discussions every month. And thanks again. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. Have a good one.